inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Alec, Sabina, and Angela Ferrari from Portland, Maine are joining me on the podcast today. They have an absolutely incredible story. They have one property. It's a 3-unit house. They live in one of the units. They rent out the other 2. And the rental income from the 2 units they rent out is about $60,000 a year. That is a ton of money. And because of that money, Angela was able to leave her job and do what she wants to do. She's able to follow her passion. That's not real estate. It's something completely different. But because of real estate, she's able to do what it is that she wants to do. This is an awesome story. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. So let's take a real quick break. We'll get a word in from our sponsor. We'll come back in 30 seconds, and we'll meet Alec and Angela.
Are you on track to achieve your financial goals? Income-producing real estate is the most historically proven way to accumulate wealth and has created more financial freedom than any other means. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best turnkey cash flow rental properties. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly income. Get your free strategy session with our knowledgeable investment counselors at noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Angela, let's start with you. Tell me what your life was like before you guys bought this property.
I was a full-time waitress for 6 years at a restaurant, and I really liked my job a lot. I liked my customers. Things were going well, but I was working really, really long hours. I was getting out of work late, and the thing I really wanted to do was write children's stories, and I just didn't have a lot of time or energy to put towards that. So when I started doing the Airbnb, managing it and cleaning it, it took off all at once. I think we started in September, and in Portland, that's still a busy time of year for us. So we were busy right away. I was coming home in between lunch and dinner shift, having to turn over the apartment. And after a few months of that, I was like, I think I can do the Airbnb full time and finish up waiting tables.
That's incredible. So the revenue that you're making off the Airbnb was enough to replace the money you were earning as a waitress.
Yeah, not only was it enough to produce rent of a long-term rental, it also did replace my annual income as a server.
That's awesome. So tell me, what's your life like today?
So today I manage the one Airbnb, and I usually spend probably 10 hours a week altogether working on that. That's cleaning and managing the calendar, updating the guests, all those kinds of things. And then full-time, I write and illustrate children's books, and I host a children's story podcast. So I get to spend most of my time working on something I'm really, really passionate about.
That is so awesome. And it's all because of basically the Airbnb that you have this time to really do what it is you want to do with your life.
Yeah,
right?
it is all awesome. Because of that.
That is really awesome. So let's talk about the property. So this is a 3-unit property. You live in one of the units. You do Airbnb with one of the units, and then you have another tenant in the 3rd unit. Is that right?
So yeah. So one unit we typically rent to medical students because we're very in close proximity to 2 hospitals, and the unit that we do Airbnb in, that when we purchased the house, the landlord at the time rented that out to short-term stays for physicians at the hospital. So after a while of us living here, we kind of put 2 and 2 together and realized that we could, by adding some things to the apartment, we could try doing the Airbnb, and that's what we did.
So when you first purchased the property, was your plan to make money on it, or were you just thinking, well, this is a place that I'm going to live and, maybe we'll rent it out? Or were you thinking that this house would be such a big moneymaker?
We knew at the time that the house could, at least between, working and renting out the apartments, it would at least pay for itself. And that was really our ultimate goal. The house needed, it needed some doors, it needed some windows, it needed a paint job. Over the years, just progressively made improvements, sweat equity. And I think that, over the time it's we've been able to raise the rents a little bit and get a little bit more for the Airbnb than we probably could have at the beginning, when it was just, essentially a refrigerator and a bed and a bathroom.
Yeah, it took us a while to set it up. And what also worked out really well is the timing with the food scene in Portland. So things have changed pretty rapidly here. Portland's been written up in a lot of national food magazines, and it's become a food destination and a craft beer destination. So we stay pretty busy here year round too. So the timing worked out well for updating it to be an Airbnb short-term rental.
Are your short-term guests, are they mainly people that are going there for vacation, or do you get business travelers too?
We have some a mix of everything.
Okay.
I'd say the majority are people coming to, a typical guest will be, they fly into Boston, they stay there for a couple of days, and they come to Portland, and then they move on to, the Acadia region, Bar Harbor, and those areas.
I imagine that you're maybe getting a lot of overflow from the hotels, that maybe when the hotels are booked up, that people want to come on vacation there, that they can't find a place to stay. Maybe they consider an Airbnb. And I'm sure there's people that maybe look at Airbnb first. But do you find that you have to look at the hotel vacancy or look at the hotels to see if they're selling out, and then maybe you can adjust your rates a little bit?
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Dan. I'm always looking at the other Airbnbs and the hotel prices. Portland, especially on the peninsula, is very busy from April to October. And there's a lot of times people are visiting. Even when I was waiting tables, we'd have people visiting over the summer saying they couldn't find a place anywhere on Portland that was available to stay. So those would be our busiest and most expensive nights that we charge for the Airbnb is during those months of April to October.
So you say it takes you about 10 hours a week for the cleaning, dealing with bookings, whatever else might come up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'd say I'm very thorough. I'm owner occupied, and this is the only space that I'm taking care of for Airbnb. I definitely put a lot of extra effort into managing it. I think I could probably get away with doing a little less work, but I really want to make sure people enjoy their stay and I can provide a really good accommodation for people.
Now, a lot of my listeners, they have full-time jobs, that they're busy doing other stuff, and maybe they don't have 10 hours a week to put into an Airbnb. Are there ways you can outsource some of the work?
Yeah, there's been a few times where because of scheduling, I'm unable to clean the apartment myself. So I've hired people out to do that. It's important to me, though, that the place looks the same every time. So what I try to do is plan ahead, and I take pictures of exactly what I want the place to look like. So when people go in, they can take a picture and see, okay, this is where this is supposed to be. This is how this is supposed to look. So that helps. Putting those mechanisms in place, I think, helps with consistency.
Right. Okay.
I've spoken with quite a number of hosts around Portland, and they've utilized cleaning services to come through, and they basically give them the schedule of when their people are checking out and when the window is to come and clean, and the cleaning services comes in and takes care of it for them. So it's a lot less work for those hosts if they've made a connection with a cleaning company. And
you can charge a cleaning fee, right, to your guests? You can kind of tack that on. So if you were to outsource that, would the amount that you're charging the guest, could you pay that amount to a cleaning service, or does that not really work out number-wise?
You could structure it that way.
Okay.
We don't charge a cleaning fee just because it's so easy for me to clean, and I like to be a little more competitive with my pricing.
Yeah.
But most people do charge a cleaning fee.
Okay. And overall, how much do you make a year off the Airbnb?
It's variable, but pretty close to 40,000 the last year that we did it.
That is absolutely incredible. That is a lot of money. And that's just off that one unit, and you still have another unit that you're renting out too.
Yes.
Coming up on the Rental Income Podcast.
We're going to hear about that second unit. They rent this one out to medical students, so I want to see if this is a lot more hands-off than the Airbnb. We'll find out and see how things are going with that, but first it's time for a Landlord Pop Quiz brought to you by our friends over at rentprep.com. Here's today's question. A recent study by the Federal Trade Commission found what percentage of consumers have wrong information on their credit reports? Is it 5%, 9%, 18%, or 23%? The correct answer is 23%, so that's almost 1 in 4 people have wrong information on their credit report. RentPrep.com has told me that's exactly what they're seeing when they're doing background checks, so it's really important to not just look at someone's credit because it's not giving you the whole picture, and it's really not a good predictor if that person is going to be a good tenant or not. So it's really important to go a step further, and that's what RentPrep does. They have a bunch of databases that they have access to where they can cross-reference information. They can find errors, omissions, false positives. There's a ton of information that they have access to and also a ton of experience that they have. They do tenant screening all day long, so that they can be a really, really great resource for you. They've agreed to offer our listeners a 20% off promo code to try out their screening services. Just go to rentprep.com/Dan. That's rentprep.com/Dan. And of course, that's my name. Nothing can crash your rental dreams faster than a bad tenant, and that's why I recommend you use rentprep.com for all your screening needs. To get your free promo code and a host of other free landlord resources, go to rentprep.com/Dan. That's rentprep.com/Dan. All right, let's get back to the show. So, Alec, tell me about this other rental.
Yeah, typically we've had quite a number of medical students or resident doctors that are doing their residency at one of the 2 hospitals that's very close proximity to us.
Okay. Now, how do you market the property to the medical students? Like, is there a specific way that you're reaching out to potential tenants?
Well, probably twofold. One is just the timing aspect of it. Resident doctors, medical students, they're typically looking for rental unit in the summer around July. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to time your vacancy to that time of the year, you can target that way. And also, we've been able to put postings up inside the hospitals where people, are selling something or posting other rents, and that's been a really good avenue for us to come up with tenants.
And location-wise, it's a perfect location for them because you're within walking distance to the hospital, right?
Yes, yeah, very close. And in fact, we've had some tenants that either don't have a car or don't really use their car, right, just because it's so close, and that's definitely a plus.
Now, why do you rent to students as opposed to renting to just a random person? Can you get a premium by renting to the students because they want to be close to the hospital?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't say we target them because we can get more rent from them. Mm-hmm. I think that they're, as far as a tenant goes, they're pretty easy to, house. They work long hours. They don't use a lot of water. They're just not around as often as some other people would be. And they're quiet and, just pretty much the epitome of a perfect tenant in most cases. So it's, and once you've had that a couple times, it's kind of tough to put it in your mind that you wouldn't go that route again.
Right. Totally. Now, what about screening them? Do you screen the tenants, or do you know that, okay, well, they've got a job at the hospital? Like, they are getting paid, right, when they're working at the hospital? So, you know that they're getting paid from the job at the hospital, and maybe they're getting some family help. Like, so do you do any kind of a formal screening, or does the fact that they work at the hospital, is that good enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, I do go through, a regular showing process, do a group showing, and you get a pretty good sense of, who these folks are from talking with them. And, like you said, they have an income stream and they don't have a lot of time to go out and spend their money. So it's, and they're pretty, I think for the most part, these soon to be doctors are very straightforward, and they just seem to be super easy. I know I'm making it sound like landlord dreams come true.
Right.
But these they just are super tenants, and I've never had a bad experience.
And this is a 2-bedroom unit?
It is, yes.
Do you rent to 2 students, or is it just one tenant in there?
I have we have in the past rented to 2, and we've also had for example, we had a surgical resident that was in Portland doing the residency for about 4 years. So she just wanted enough space, and that was fine with us.
Sure. And how much do you rent that unit for?
That's a $1,500 rental, and that doesn't include heat and hot water. But we have an on-demand natural gas, so it's if they're not there using a lot of heat and hot water, and they're on the second floor, so they get a lot of our heat anyway. So the gas is really pretty minimal, compared to if they were on the first floor with oil heat or something.
So with $1,500 a month, so that's $18,000 a year plus the $40,000 on the Airbnb. So that's like just about $60,000 a year that you're bringing in off this one property, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we do with the Airbnb. There are some other expenses. We have to buy towels.
Sure.
And, we pay for the heat back there and the internet for the tenants, and we maintain the driveway and things like that. So it is really good. It would be tough to think of how it would be if we didn't live here. Would we be able to kind of juggle these things?
Right.
That's questionable, but it works out, very well for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're here so often. Yeah.
So now, when you were doing this, did you have any kind of real estate training, or did you literally just figure this out as you were doing everything?
Well, I only had one real estate experience before then, where my brother, who's also my business partner, we had purchased a commercial condominium that we run a restaurant out of. Mm-hmm. So we had made a connection with a real estate broker, and he was just a real easy person to work with, and
and then setting up for the Airbnb, we actually are also friends with someone who owns a bed and breakfast, and he came over and helped us by looking at everything that we might need to furnish the place with to make sure people were comfortable when they were staying with us.
That's perfect. Well, you guys, are you motivated to do this again after seeing how much success you've had with this one house? Are you are you itching to do it again, or are you just totally happy with what you have going on right now?
I'd say we're pretty content where we are now. I mean, there's definitely some folks out there that are, especially in Portland, that are buying, 6 units and with plans to rent them all as Airbnbs.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's great. I think it's a little more than we would want to bite off.
Yeah, I don't think I want to clean apartments.
Right, that's a lot of work. Right.
I'm really happy with the balance we've struck. I think it's the perfect mix of, we're comfortable, we're getting our bills paid, but we're also getting to pursue other things that we really enjoy doing too.
Yeah, and I think that's really the greatest thing with your story, and the greatest thing with what you're doing is, like, you're not trying to be big time real estate moguls. Like, this one property is really just making your life so much better. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so awesome. Well, Angela, why don't you tell us where people can find out more about you? Tell us about your podcast and where someone can find your books.
Sure. I host a children's story podcast. It's called Story Spectacular. It's really great for listening to in the car, unwinding for bed, or if you just need to have a break with a good story. So it's available. You can go to storyspectacular.com and find the podcast there, and it gives you info on how to download it on iTunes or Google Play. And on the website, you can also purchase books and watch videos too.
And Angela, I know I've told you this, but for everyone listening, her show is absolutely incredible. The production value and the time that you put into the show, it shows. Like, you're doing a really, really good job with the podcast. So definitely keep that up.
Oh, that's high praise coming from you, Dan. Thank you.
And Alec, why don't you tell us how someone can learn more about you and tell us about your restaurant?
Sure. Well, my brother and I own a restaurant called Hot Suppa, and we've been around for going on 12 years here. It's our take on American Southern cuisine. We're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, you can find us online at hotsuppa.com. It's a lot of, Facebook, all those sort of avenues are there. And some of our some fan favorites at Hot Suppa, and it's kind of out of the way for a place in Maine to be serving Southern cuisine, but we do like a fried green tomato eggs Benedict. We have a real popular Bloody Mary. We do chicken and a waffle. So we're right downtown Portland on Congress Street, and it's a fun place.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. If anyone wants to check out the links for anything we mentioned on the podcast, you can check it out at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 138. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.